I haven't made a video directly addressing Dissenter. So let's do that. I've talked about Dissenter in the past. For those that aren't familiar, it's a Chrome extension that creates a comment section for any page on the internet. It's actually incredible. Now, for many pages, there won't be any comments. It's got to be something rather public or viral so that people can comment on it. But with many people trying to disable comments on videos, with many news outlets trying to disable comments, this was actually incredibly smart. When I first heard what Dissenter was, I was kind of shocked because it's so simple and it's so brilliant. Now, of course, you've got political hit campaigns coming out because it's Gab, and for political reasons, people don't like Gab. And Gab is, you know, it typically does have a presumable large base of Trump supporters and even people who say awful things for the simple fact that they allow you to say awful things. You're not allowed to break the law. It's my understanding you can't dox people. But there are people who know that hate speech is banned on other platforms, so they go to Gab. However, I don't want to talk too much about that for now. We'll get to that in a second. But first, let's read what it is. From the Daily Caller, a new tool allows users to comment on any web page freely without fear of being banned. A new web tool released late last month by the creators of the social network Gab touts itself as the Wild West of the internet, promising free, unmoderated discourse across all platforms. The application, aptly named Dissenter, comes in the form of a browser extension and effectively creates an open comment section on every single web page on the internet. The catch: there is nothing website owners can do to modify, manage, or otherwise control the conversations. Users can install the open source extension to a number of the most popular web browsers, including Chrome and Firefox. Once installed, users can access the completely unmoderated comment board for each unique web address on the internet. Because these comment sections are hosted by Gab and simply indexed to individual web pages, users have the freedom to discuss tweets, YouTube videos, news articles, and more without the threat of censorship that comes with commenting on the platforms themselves. We have a statement here from the CEO. Dissenter has become a necessary tool due to rampant corporate censorship of ordinary internet users. Whether that takes the form of YouTube demonetizing millions of videos and removing comment sections, Facebook and Instagram banning British activist Tommy Robinson for his political opinions, or Netflix banning comedy shows at the behest of Saudi princes. Said a statement from Andrew Torba, who's the CEO of Gab. Torba later added, the tool is needed now more than ever, claiming that it puts the power back in the hands of the people to shine a light on propaganda, lies, censorship, corruption, and sophistry across the web. Dissenter launches at a time when comment sections are no longer available on every mainstream news site and blog. YouTube is shutting down comment sections while also demonetizing channels over their comment sections, and social media censorship is the worst it has ever been. Here's the thing. The people who are likely to use Dissenter are going to be of a particular political faction, though the platform, the extension itself, has tremendous potential. I think they're going to be met by a hostile media that doesn't want them to have the ability to do this. And so the last thing they want is for these conversations to happen. I was reading somewhere from, it was like neuroscientists talking about the importance of comment sections and proximity. And they were, actually I'll use this example. When I was on the Joe Rogan podcast with Jack Dorsey, he mentioned that there was a woman from the Westboro Baptist Church who was de-radicalized because she was on Twitter and was exposed to other people. Two things happen when you have comment sections. People can communicate with each other. Someone might say they're a Trump supporter and someone else can say they hate Trump, but then they interact and they realize the other person's not that bad. They're, typically they'll leave saying like, well, that person was an idiot, but they weren't a Nazi, right? But what happens when you separate these groups? This is where it starts getting terrifying to me, and I don't blame Dissenter for this. I blame the path to hell paved by good intentions. When people are separate from each other, they talk about each group to each other and rile each other up extensively, constantly pointing to the other until both groups are so terrified of the other, they start beating each other. They freak out. Now, what we've seen so far in the U.S. is typically it's the left, it's Antifa, that gets to the point of violence because they're scared and like generally deranged people, right? Very racist in many circumstances. And they end up throwing, mortar shells and fireworks at people, bashing people over the head. And then you get a reaction from the right to push back. What we're seeing now with Dissenter is actually very worrying to me because you're creating kind of like a shadow internet where only one faction of people will be commenting on things and they're potentially going to rile themselves up because there's no counter. Okay, when you're on Twitter and you tweet something, someone can push back and criticize you. And while a lot of people don't like it, at least it's there. What we're seeing now with social media sites banning Trump supporters, banning conservatives. Yes, they ban people on the left, but it's typically in one direction. They're isolating their group, the left. Meanwhile, the right, who is fleeing to other platforms like Gab and Dissenter, are isolating themselves inadvertently. Absolutely, these people didn't want to be isolated, but they were forced off. And this is what I said to Jack Dorsey, that you are pushing people to the darkness. You are taking people who smoked a little pot and putting them in a maximum security prison with murderers. What do you think that's going to do to people? Well, naturally, the media wants to make sure that problem gets worse, because not only do the social media sites overwhelmingly ban people on the right, but when they do try to make a platform, this happens. Meet Dissenter, a far-right comment section for hating on journalists. Let's be honest about what Dissenter is. Dissenter is a tool that allows you to comment on any page. That's it. What do they say it is? It's a far-right comment section for hating journalists. Well, it's clearly not for hating journalists. Some people hate journalists and some people don't. I'm sure most of the people who are being lied about by the Daily Dot are naturally going to be upset that you're lying about them, and they're probably going to comment. I actually don't have Dissenter installed, but they're probably going to comment and talk smack about this journalist. I shouldn't call them journalists, digital blogger, who is lying about what Dissenter is. But let's read more. Have you ever hated journalists so much that you wanted to create an online commenting system just so you could complain about them behind their backs? Not what the platform's for. Listen, Anna, I know you wrote this. You can join Dissenter. You can come on and argue back. It's open to you. Isn't that crazy how the internet works? Well, we have good news for you. If you're a card-carrying member of the far right, you can now shout into the void with Gab's new social media platform, Dissenter, the self-described comment section of the internet. It's basically stumble upon for people who voted for Trump. It's literally not stumble upon. That makes absolutely no sense. It's a browser extension that it's not stumble upon. You'd like click a button, it would send you to a new page to like expose you to new things. Stumble upon is actually a really good idea too. Dissenter lets posters share a URL, comment on it, and see if others also have opinions. Wow, is that it? While the site essentially lets users discuss articles in a centralized place, it also doubles as a stomping ground for randomly complaining about things on the internet. Apparently, you've never been to the internet. You're complaining about things right now on the internet. How about that? Tweets, YouTube videos, and articles discussing Dissenter regularly flood the service, with very little constructive discussion actually going on in the site. It's mostly just an echo chamber for conservative users who want to complain about feminism or Democrats, and you're entirely welcome to go there and complain about them, like you're doing now. Hell, you can even install a browser extension to see what your right-wing buddies are saying while you browse through Breitbart. It's easy to see why Gab created Dissenter. While most news sites have gradually removed their comment sections amid harassment and dogpiling against journalists, aw, poor babies, the Daily Dot retired its comment section in 2015. Dissenter is trying to give its users a place to mobilize against mainstream news media and lash out collectively. It's also a way that you can have a social network that can't be banned from domain registrars. Now, it's possible they still can, but as a browser extension, they can directly link it to a server, and they don't need to worry about DNS banning them or even their servers banning them because they can host their own servers. This is why I say I feel it's so brilliant. It creates an effective social media network where people can talk about commonly occurring stories, and it makes it very difficult to censor. It absolutely is smart. But again, you're creating a shadow internet. I don't blame Gab users for it or Dissenter. Like, people want to look. Everybody wants to talk to people, right? They want to be social and they want to communicate. If you're going to ban them and insult them and lie about them, then they have no choice. You are effectively creating this underbelly, this dark, alleyway of the internet, where people are lurking around behind your buildings talking to each other. They're not all bad. And you can go back there and talk to them too. But these people are so, it's dominoes falling over, right? This woman writing this article is lying about what they're doing, what it's for. It's for hating journalists. Like, it's an extreme exaggeration, misrepresents what a lot of people are doing, but it's going to lead to more people ragging on you. I shouldn't call you a journalist because this is hyperbolic nonsense. It's not journalism. So what happens is this person who is already angry lies about other people who makes them angry, refuses to get involved and have a conversation, and thus they split themselves. It can only go one direction. It can only get worse, in my opinion. So we have here an example, I guess. Some images, you can dissent this. Some fun facts about Vice writer, and they have, people commenting. Gab creator Andrew Torba acts as if the Dissenter is a free speech haven. But free speech isn't absolute. There are limits to what one can and should say in a public space. And besides, there are already thousands of other news aggregate websites out there with minimal moderation, letting users pretty much say what they want. Reddit is a classic example, except, oh, this is ridiculous. And so is Mastodon's Fediverse, except Mastodon even banned Will Wheaton. Did you know that Will Wheaton got kicked off? It was a specific server. And Reddit has moderators and admins. So no, you're ridiculous. They go on to say that Gab is a notorious hotspot for the alt-right. That's technically true, but again, I cite the study that was posted to Wikipedia that 5% of Gab posts are hate speech. So yes, people speak there because they're allowed to and they don't get banned for it. But you are creating the seedy underbelly, complaining about it, and making the problems worse. You know what? Learn to code over and over again. It's hilarious. Game journalist activist website, one Dissenter user complained about Kotaku Wednesday night. Not a real video game news website. Can't seem to keep politics separate from gaming either. They're just mad. Here, Torba said, Gab is not a far-right social network. Do you describe Twitter as an ISIS social network or YouTube as a pedophile social network? I don't think so. Gab is a social network that is always and will always welcome all people to speak freely. No comment section on Vice. What a surprise. Not anymore. You know, people ragging out. We'll leave it there. It is what it is. And Anna, who wrote this article, is clearly salty and lying about what it is. Yes, there are people on it who are unsavory. There is more hate speech on Twitter than on Gab. That's a fact. And when you look at it proportionally, percentage-wise, Gab has a higher percentage, but substantially less users and substantially less hate speech. I'll leave it there. I'm pretty wiped out. I'll have some more videos tomorrow at 10 a.m. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you then.